Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Debbie coming from Fireside Chat with Debbie Marks. And I would like to welcome you to what is this, June's episode. And today's guest is Jacqueline Williams. Jacqueline, do you go by Jacqueline or Jackie?
Jackie is fine.
Okay, great. Um, I'd like to give a little bit of an introduction to Jackie and who she is. So, Jacqueline was born in Brooklyn, but she grew up in Amityville. I bet that's a story. Amityville, Long Island, and she attended the Long Island University and George Washington University. She received a BA in psychology and an MED in education and human development. And that's quite an interesting area to be in. But she's now retired from her career where she worked as a special educator and an advocate for children diagnosed with chronic and terminal illness at one of the nation's top pediatric hospitals. She has turned her hand to writing. She wrote a book called By His Grace, which I have here, my own copy. And it is a memoir of her survival of childhood trauma. It is designed to show readers that they are not alone in the fight and can act as a stimulus for conversations that will encourage others to open up about their experience and help them heal as a result. And Jacqueline, just FYI, I am also writing a memoir about my childhood trauma. So I enjoyed your book immensely. Today, Jacqueline lives in South Hill, Virginia, and with her sisters, granddaughters, Desiree and Daryl, who she has adopted. That's so sweet. She spends her free time power walking, drinking coffee, eating out, reading, and going to the theater and the cinema. She also gives back to her community, having designed and run a free youth empowerment program called Who's at Risk? And it's for ages 10 through 20 who have experienced family trauma, bullying, and low self-esteem. And boy, is this stuff needed right now for our kids.
Absolutely.
Yep. In the future, Jacqueline is keen to travel both within the United States and internationally to talk with other survivors and those who are also undergoing the healing process. I will put Jacqueline's information in the chat box for those of you that would like to reach out to her. So, Jacqueline, I would like to welcome you here today. And first off, is there anything you would like to fill in that tells us about you and where you're going?
Well, first, Debbie, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to chat with you today. I think that I am an average person, but my faith propelled me into wholeness. I believe in therapy. I tell everyone I laid on the couch for 8 years so I could be whole, so that I would not carry the pain and the stigma of childhood trauma for the rest of my life, so that I could talk about it freely and talk about it in its entirety, because sometimes it's it's hard for those of us who were violated to tell the filthy, dirty part. But you've got to tell the whole story to be free. And in order to be free, we have to know that there is no way a child gave any level of consent to be violated, either physically from domestic violence or sexual assault. And so many people are lost in the process and don't actually understand yet that that happened to you. That is not who you are. And going to therapy helped me understand that happened to me. That's not who I am. I am a remarkable, wonderful person. And now I'm on this journey meeting remarkable, wonderful people like you. And I think we can help each other overcome the stigma of childhood trauma, because we were victims, we were children. Yeah, we had no control. I met a young woman who whispered to me that she was assaulted and she never told a soul. She's married and she has adult children. She never told her husband. She never told anyone. There's a lot of shame that comes along with childhood trauma, but it's not really our shame to carry. The persons who violated us should be ashamed, not us. We're innocent kids. We should have been out playing and having fun riding our bikes. But instead, some other very dark things were happening. So I think I am, I always say I'm the quintessential chick from Amityville, Long Island, who never should have made it. But God's grace and his mercy is why I'm here today.
Amen. I have so much appreciation for what you just said, because it's so true. And there's not enough help out there for us. And back in those days, those were taboo. You didn't talk about them in public.
Absolutely not one word ever.
Nope. And let alone go to the police for help. No way. Never.
Yeah.
So what prompted you to become an author?
So I am a reluctant writer, but I believe that I heard the voice of God, and so I started writing. And I wrote the book way back in 2006. And it was cathartic, but it was also extremely painful. I mean, it was lie in the floor and cry, just until my pillow was wet, because I was still carrying the pain, the shame. And each time I wrote another chapter or I did some editing, more freedom came. That's how I know you have to talk about it. You have to. Keeping the secret only honors those who violated us. It doesn't honor us. And so I held the book until Desiree and Daryl were older, because I was a classroom teacher, and children can be interesting. And this is a really heavy topic. It's got some real bad stuff inside this book. And so when they got to be teenagers, when they were 15 and 17, I asked them what did they think. And they said that they thought I should write the book. And Daryl read a paragraph and said to me, "Oh yeah, you absolutely have to tell. You have to." Because they have classmates who have disclosed to them. And they felt so helpless and didn't know what to do or say to their classmates. So I just encouraged them to tell your classmate, you got to find somebody that you trust, some adult that you know you can trust, and you've got to tell. As painful as it is, you've got to tell. And they were comfortable, so I released a book. And I went into pre-sales first. And 22 of my friends in Amityville, friends that I went to kindergarten with, immediately bought the book the day that I announced the pre-sales. So I kind of been running, trying to keep up with the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, these are conversations that we have to have, because we're not optimal if we're carrying that. We're working hard to do our best and give our best, but we aren't at our best. So how can we, or we do our best and give our best at work and go home at night and cry yourself to sleep? No, we all deserve better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I released it, and I only have one nephew left, my sister's son. He was very proud, and he said, "I never know that you and mom went through such horror." So I said, "Yeah, we went through some bad stuff." My sister and I always used to say the real Amityville Horror lived at our house. They should have made a movie about us, But in fact, most people never even heard of Amityville, Long Island until the Amityville Horror. But and I certainly don't mean to diminish the tragedy of the DeFeo family, but there was some real tragedy going on at our house too.
Huh. So is this what made you decide to write about your childhood trauma? What specifically was it?
I really, I know it sounds spooky, but I really believe that I heard God. I do. I believe that I heard God, and it was time. And when I started, I was like, "You want me to tell this part?" And I would cry, and the ugly face cry. And by the time we were ready for the publisher, there were no more tears. Certainly about what happened to me. I didn't deserve it. But I was stronger and certainly a little bit wiser. And I could stand, and be crystal clear that while I endured this, it was no making of my own, because I lived with the shame of not telling for so many years because I never told. Well, most kids won't tell. They're terrified. This is an adult who's violating you. They'll put any idea in your head to keep you silent, because most pedophiles, their greatest fear is being found out.
Mm-hmm.
And so after I wrote so many people to me, I realized that this is a dialogue that we have to have. We have to have these conversations. If we have them in small groups, if we have them in large groups. And so I determined that I would make myself available to any group. If they could pay, that's fine. If they can't, that's fine. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. Because getting rid of the shame and the hurt and the pain of childhood trauma is more important than any honorarium I could ever receive. It's more important for people to be whole. So many people, Debbie, just hurting. I have met so many people, male and female, hurting and can't tell it yet. And so, and so the impetus for war, who's at risk, was just a lot of bullying that my girls went through. They are biracial. And so they weren't Black enough for the Black kids. They weren't white enough for the white kids. And so sometimes they couldn't find a place to fit. And they endured a lot of bullying. And so we had a lot of talk about who you are and how you don't have to be accepted by everybody, but you do have to accept who you are for you. And so in the war meetings, war is very, very unstructured. I mean, we do a lot of conflict resolution because many parents don't teach their kids how to resolve conflict, which is why they don't go to school and do some of the things that they do. But you got many parents who no one taught them how to resolve a conflict. No one taught them to say, I think we're having a problem. Could we talk about it? Or I feel like you don't like me. Did I do something? And so I kind of, got my girls through some tough bullying. But in that process, a lot of their friends were like, well, I got bullied too. And so we started Who's at Risk to help kids understand, mostly poor inner city and now rural community kids, that there are 98 risk factors that will describe who you are if you're poor. You make the decision about whether or not you choose to own that, but you can't make the decision if you don't know who's at risk. And so that's kind of like our introduction. We talk about poverty and poor standards of learning scores and food deserts and just kind of the kind of stuff that kids really are aware of and want to talk about, and they're really able to talk about, but no one's engaging them in that dialogue either. And out of those conversations sometimes comes those very private situations where these kids are also being violated or beaten at home. One young lady, her mom's boyfriend beat up her mom, and eventually he beat her up. That's what beaters do. People, yeah, that's what they do. It's sooner or later they're gonna hit the kid because it's natural to protect mom. That's a normal instinct to want to stop, and fortunately she's a smart mom. Her mom got herself away from that guy. And her daughter looks up to her for that. Yeah, get yourself out of the situation. And we even talk about how you need a plan. If you're with a batterer, you have to have a plan. And you probably need to write the plan down, but don't keep the written plan in your home. It has to be someplace else. It's very hard to leave a batterer without plan. You got to have a plan because you've got to outsmart someone who is pretty diabolical. And you can, So I'm real proud of that little girl, how her mom got away, and started a different life. And we hear from her from time to time.
That's great. Jackie, you are an inspiration to the people that you communicate with, you touch. I mean, I've got a feeling the people you touch just are more than you can count. And so it sounds like, I mean, how many hats do you wear?
Well, not too many nowadays. I'm kind of like all the way retired. So I'm just, the entrepreneur hat and then mom, and the kids are getting big, Desiree's 19 years old now. So she doesn't need a lot from mom. And Desiree had just turned 3 when she came to live with me. And
Wow.
Daryl will be 16 in a few weeks, 17 in a few weeks. And Daryl was 11 months old when she came to live with me. And so I don't even have to wear that mom hat like I used to,
Right.
With a diaper bag and a backpack and at least 3 books.
I remember those days.
And because back then we lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and I am such a native New Yorker that I don't even know how to drive. So we used public transportation for everything. And we used to have a snack and a story on the bus. And I would read out loud to my girls on the bus. I didn't care what people thought. That was our plan. We have a snack and we read a story, and that's how they behave themselves on a bus. And one time we were on a Greyhound bus going to visit family in New York, and we took a smoke break, and the bus driver said to me, "Those are the two most well-behaved kids that I could." He said, "Ma'am, I forgot they were behind me." He said, "You don't know, kids kick my seat. They did." He said, "I forgot they were there." So I said, "Snack and a story."
Um,
So
um, and he's right. I mean, how many times are you on a bus or even a tour bus or whatever? I mean, somewhere kids do not know how to behave themselves like they used to or like we used to. Totally different.
yeah, it is different. And Desiree said to me, sometimes I don't like having an old school parent, but sometimes I'm kind of glad, Mom, because whenever I go too far to the wrong direction, you're always right there to say, "Is that appropriate?" And she mimicked me. Yeah, but that's a good question, though. Is that appropriate?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So you mentioned, you use a formal outline when you're writing, or do you prefer, excuse me, a freestyle approach?
I'm more freestyle, though I have the very best publisher on the planet. I self-published through Fivefold Publishing, and their CEO, Rita Henderson, she not only publishes your book and it came out beautiful. I mean, the whole color and the concept, we really did that online. She didn't see the color. I kind of described it to her. I mean, these folks are fabulous. They are anointed to do what they do. But I love Fivefold Publishing because they teach you every aspect of the publishing business. They are not afraid to teach you how to do what they do. They absolutely believe that there's enough money out here for all of us, so we don't have to be afraid to teach what we know. And I believe that. I believe that if you got something good, you should share it. You should share it. And imitation is the highest form of flattery. You should never worry about another coach coaching with your style or your system, because the truth is nobody can do what you do the way you do it. They may be able to take it, modify it, and use it, and that's a blessing. But there's no way, Debbie, I can do what you do. There isn't. I could do a reasonable facsimile, but only Debbie can give you Debbie. Because when you're giving in that training or that coaching mode, or even in the sharing of the pieces that will become a book, you're giving you. So my girls say your flavor is there, and nobody else has that. And so I tried to put a lot of flavor in the book, and I also try very hard for the war sessions to be what the young people think they should be, not what I think.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times I've been really, really surprised at how mature they are, and how if we give them a platform, a safe place, they do have something to say, and it is something that we need to hear. Had a 9-year-old tell us in a session, we asked, "What is the number one thing that you think our country needs?" And she said, "I think the number one thing the whole world needs is kindness." She said, "Miss Jackie, just think what it'd be like if every single person on the planet was kinder She almost made me cry. She's 9. She wasn't even supposed to be in the session, but we let her in because she's an old soul. But so smart and beautiful. I enjoy the sessions with the young people, and I never hold organizations. They call me up and say, "Would you come and do a demo, or could you come do 2 sessions, however many sessions?" We don't really have a budget. We try to work that out. We try to work it out so that we can go, because if you receive the call, there is a need.
Yes.
Somebody
Yes.
recognize there's a need. And we don't ever want a kid to be in a crisis situation and we didn't respond.
Hmm. I was watching a movie the other night, and it the theme was and it's a kids movie. Um, See a need, fill a need. And
Mm.
how true. That's exactly that's what we try to do. Um, so so you've given a lot of advice about um, to an aspiring author, but what are the 3 major things you hoped to accomplish with the book By His Grace?
Um, I hoped that it would shine a light on what happens to children who are trapped in domestic violence and what happens to children who are being sexually assaulted. Um, and I always say this, I mean this from my heart. Uh, any sexual contact by an adult with a child is an assault.
Yes.
And and it is an assault that that child will carry well into adulthood. It will never go away. Certainly, we learn how to cope, we learn how to be healthy, we learn how to be whole, but it never goes away. The thought of what happened to you is always there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to spark some dialogue. I wanted people to talk about it. I wanted to find, um, everyone tells us as coaches, you need to find your niche. And now I never thought, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. We can still hear you.
Oh, I'm not sure what that was. But that was interesting. But I think that sparking the conversation was number one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think number two, I didn't want anyone else in my family to to live with that kind of secret. If it had happened to anyone else, I it was my hope that they would share it, not necessarily with me, but with, and I do have a cousin who shared what happened to her. Um, and you know, I was about to say, you know how they always tell a coach to find your niche. Well, I certainly never thought that my niche would be overcoming adversity, but it is. I'm looking for people who are in some level of adversity and some level of crises, and don't necessarily know how to maneuver their way out of it into wholeness and into the place where you feel better about you as you start the process to become the best version of yourself. So that would be my third reason. I'm reaching for that group. I want to coach that group, because I tell people, if you need proof, use my life as your baseline. You can be free. I am your living proof that you can be free. You do not have to carry your mother or your father's or whoever shame. You don't. It's not going to leave your memory, but it won't live uppermost in your memory when you start the process to become whole.
You've talked about you've given us a lot of information, and but one thing that's important is what kind of encouragement or advice would you give to children or even adults who are experiencing the negative effects of childhood trauma? You've given us a lot, but pin it down to, just a couple.
Um, it's very hard to overcome without clinical assistance. You're going to need to go to therapy. Going to need to go to therapy. So finding the right therapist, the right fit for you is paramount. And holding on to your faith. And I don't really care what your faith is. I'm not discriminating at all, but holding on to your faith, believing that since I'm going to therapy, I'm going to get well and God's going to make a way for me. And then starting to decide the hardest part. Who am I without the stigma? Who am I when I shed the pain, the shame, the guilt, the fear? Who am I? So you need a good coach. And you need a coach 9 times out of 10 who's been through what you're going through and survived. And even a coach that thrived, because I did more than survive. I'm thriving. I am well. I am whole. And I think you need the clinical piece, you need the faith piece, and then you need some guiding. The therapist on the clinical side will help maneuver the past. The coach will help maneuver the future. The faith in the middle is the foundation for both.
Wow. That's powerful. So, why do you ask clients what they learned as children about how to solve conflicts?
It's very telling. It's very telling because a lot of times how we handle conflict tells us about our leadership style. It tells us about how well we cooperate. And sometimes it's telling about what's really going on in the home. Because sometimes kids can't say, my dad punched my mom, but they can say, my dad said, if anybody hits you, hit them back. Or my granny said, if I have a fight, I better win. That's certainly what I heard when I was a kid. But that's not the best way to resolve a conflict. I mean, it's a way, but it's not the best way to resolve a conflict.
Exactly.
Conversations. And a lot of times kids, and so that's really just a confidence builder, and it gives the kid a platform to talk about who they are, what their home life is like, and then we see what comes next. And every kid that comes to war is certainly not in a domestic violence or even a sexual abuse situation, but sometimes kids are just honestly being bullied because they're not the kind of kids who will start a fight. So when someone starts with them, they don't quite know what to do. So that's why we ask them, well, what did your mom or your dad say about conflict? They don't even realize that having a fight is a conflict, or having an argument is a conflict. Disagreeing, conflict is a natural part of life. It's natural. It's how we handle the conflict that matters. And
Yeah,
many
sorry, go
children
ahead.
many children just have not been taught because their parents haven't been taught, or been taught the wrong things. Like my mom said, if you fight, you better win. Well,
I not heard that.
if you're a little skinny kid and the bully is a big one, well, how do you might win, but maybe not. So you don't want your kid to get battered and bloody. There's another way. And until we teach our children another way, we will continue what is happening in our public schools. And I dare say it's happening in some private schools as well. Because we aren't teaching our children to build community. We're teaching them to go home to their neighborhood.
So that's great information. I hope that when anyone listens to the replays of this, that they can hear your passion for this. So tell us more about why you believe that adversity, conflict, and change are natural parts of everyone's life.
Um, you know, like I said before, Debbie, conflict is a natural part of life. You are going to come in contact with people that you don't necessarily agree with, people who don't look like you, people who don't think like you. But that's their right. They're simply being who they are. There's no need for hatred or unkindness because you don't see eye to eye. And adversity and conflict are, they're twins. They're not identical twins, but they're twins. You're not going to live your life and never have any adversity. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how. You could be the wealthiest person on the planet and you are still going to face some adversity. You may even still have some conflict that may occur in a boardroom as opposed to the PE class in the 5th grade, but it's going to happen. Adversity and conflict are twins, and they're coming one way or the other, or they're coming together. It depends, And the only constant in life is change. And so rather than fear change, let's embrace the change has come and make some decisions about how we can enjoy the change, make the change work for us. These are the things we need to be teaching our kids along with academics.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They are so ill prepared for this when they go into the workforce, and they're millennials. They're very, very confused about what should happen. I met a young lady who she told me that she told her boss off, who asked her if she would make some copies, and she said she wasn't hired to make copies. But she also explained that this was kind of like crunch time, and there were some pieces of a particular document that were missing, and they were all about to make a presentation to a major client. And so I got the impression that her boss was asking her, could you pitch in just for right now? Not that she was being demeaning, but she told the boss off. And she's fortunate that she didn't lose her job, because a lot of people would have let her go. But she was so offended because she was asked to make copies.
That's ridiculous.
We're standing on ceremony about the wrong thing. We really are. And so I would dare say that she was not taught the best way to handle adversity, because when the whole presentation was off because of the missing pages, well, that's adversity. So we can make a decision to stand on ceremony about my title, or we can fix this before the client gets here.
True.
I think the person who helps the manager fix it before the client gets here is the person that the manager is going to remember for a good reason. But again, she was very proud of that. She cursed at the manager and everything. It's like, okay, at work? Wow, that's not good. And so she said, but you don't understand. So I said, no, I don't. Help me. I don't understand. She said, you really think I should have just made the copy? So I said, yeah, I do.
I agree.
She said to me, Miss Jackie, I can't believe you said that, a woman of your caliber. So I said to her, well, thank you, I think. But I can't tell you with all my degrees how many times I've had to run and make copies. Who cares? It's different if your manager is asking you to do that every day. For
Right.
like a, because it could happen a few times and you just need the help. But this was crunch time. If you secure the client, everybody gets paid. Like, young people lose sight of the big picture because they don't understand conflict, adversity, and change. They also don't understand cooperation. Um, so, you know, I make myself available to any corporate entity that that would like me to design a training for them. I'd be happy to do that.
I can
But
understand what you're saying because our generation, sure, no problem. I don't have a
yeah,
problem with that. I don't mind helping. But lately,
okay,
these kids go into the workforce and they go, I don't owe you anything. It's like, whoa.
yeah, I'm degreed. We all are degreed. Yeah, we're all. That's yeah. Come on.
So in finishing up here, um, what is your MBS model? That intrigues me.
Okay, but I'm here. You got to engage the whole person. So our mind is pretty much where we're going to yield to the clinician,
Hmm.
and the therapist is going to help us deal with all of those thoughts and ideas and feelings. And our body is, um, for many of us, being abused caused us to develop other habits. Like, I fell in love with drugs at one point. Um, I certainly fell in love with men at one point, and then it was food. So we start to ask the question, am I taking the best care that I possibly can of my own body? Am I getting out and doing a little power walk? Am I going, like many people work out at a gym? What am I doing to make my body healthy? And the spirit, of course, is that faith piece.
Yeah.
And I don't go back and forth with people about it, whether who they call God. It's okay. That's not my business. But you've got to have faith. Uh, and that's MBS. When we address those three areas, we've covered us. We've covered ourselves. We've got all of it in the right perspective, and we can begin the process to move forward.
I am surprised that once you started talking, I go, oh, I know what it is.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, right?
Right. It's like, oh, duh. Um, this has been absolutely fascinating. I have gotten so much out of this just for my own peace, for me, where I have come from and where I am now. And I so appreciate you giving us this time today because there's so many people out there that need our help, your help. You have the training. And I want to, encourage those that will watch the recording of this to get Jacqueline's book, By His Grace. It's an easy read. It's very thin, as you can see,
Yeah.
but it is packed with a lot of emotion, but yet strength. And so I encourage you to go on Amazon and get the book. It's there. And just, you know, pull up a chair on a nice sunny day and go outside and read. Um, Sally, I'd like to ask you, do you have anything you would like to offer today?
No, just thank you, Jacqueline. It's very insightful. And I didn't experience physical or sexual abuse growing up, but there are a lot of things that went on in my family that caused emotional
Yes. Yeah,
trauma.
absolutely.
And that's just as much as important
Just as
as
painful.
the other.
Yeah, it is. And in some ways, it's worse.
Yeah.
You know, the physical abuse will heal. The sexual abuse never goes away, but the emotional abuse can almost become the broken CD that keeps playing in your head. Yeah.
Good point. Good point. Yes, because there's always something that's just you'll see, read, hear that'll trigger
Trigger.
something.
Yeah. You're so right. You're
And
so
then you
right.
got to beat your head because to get it out of there. Unless you can really there's a lot to that. Jacqueline, I did put your information into the chat box on how to reach you on Facebook, Instagram, and also your email.
Thank
And
you.
so I would like to say again, thank you so much for giving us your time today. And I encourage people to watch the recording, take notes, and just let the words soak in because they're all so very important. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, everybody. Go to my YouTube channel on YouTube channel to watch the recording, and there you will find many more recordings of every month since I started this. So thank you very much, ladies, for joining us today. And I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thank you
You
very
too.
much, Debbie. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. I appreciate you. And thank you, Sally, for sharing.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much for having me. It's been just my pleasure and my privilege.
Well, thank you. You have a great weekend and enjoy your granddaughters.
Okay, you have a good one too.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
now.